you trusted to teach you was actually stealing your dreams? What if every time you created something beautiful, it was taken and claimed by someone else? What if the woman who promised to make you a star was actually burying your talent in darkness? This is the story of Chidinma, a young girl with extraordinary talent whose designs were stolen, whose voice was silenced. But her spirit could not be broken. Stay till the end, because her comeback could inspire yours. There was a young woman named Chidinma. Chidinma had a gift. She could see beauty in the simplest things. The way fabric fell, how colors combined, the way a garment could tell a story without words. Chidinma was poor, but she had these gifts that made her rich in ways money couldn't measure. Every night, Chidinma would sit in her tiny room in Nyanya, Abuja and sketch. She would draw the most incredible designs, dresses that could make a queen jealous, styles that hadn't been seen before, creations that came straight from her soul. But Chidinma had a problem. She had the talent, but she didn't have the resources. She didn't have the connections. She didn't have anyone who believed in her enough to give her a chance. Chidinma worked as a sales girl in a clothing shop in Wusetu, Abuja. She earned barely enough to eat, let alone buy fabric to create her designs. Every evening, she would walk home past the fancy boutiques in Central Business District, and she would look at the window displays and think, one day my designs will be in windows like this. But one day seemed very far away. Then one afternoon, everything changed. Auntie Toyin walked into the clothing shop where Chidinma worked. Auntie Toyin was the kind of woman who made heads turn. She was a successful fashion designer, one of the most respected in the city. Her clothes were sold in the best boutiques. She was wealthy, elegant and powerful. Auntie Toyin came to the shop to look for fabrics, and while she was there, Chidinma was helping another customer. Chidinma was suggesting color combinations, showing the customer how certain fabrics would work together, explaining how to style different pieces. Auntie Toyin watched Chidinma the whole time. She saw how she understood fabric, how Chidinma understood style, how Chidinma had an eye for what worked. When Chidinma was finished with the customer, Auntie Toyin approached her. She said, "My dear, you have a gift. Where did you learn this?" Chidinma was shy. "I didn't learn it anywhere, ma. I just see it in my head." Auntie Toyin smiled. She said, "I'm looking for an apprentice, someone who can learn, someone who has passion for fashion. Would you be interested?" Chidinma's heart stopped. She thought she was dreaming. She said, "Yes, ma. Yes, I would love that." That very day, Chidinma left her sales job and went to work for Auntie Toyin. For 2 years, Chidinma learned everything. She learned how to work with different fabrics. She learned about patterns and cuts. She learned about color theory and how to run a fashion business. Auntie Toyin was patient with her most of the time. Auntie Toyin taught her well, and Chidinma was a quick learner. She absorbed everything like a sponge. But then something changed. One day, Auntie Toyin came to the studio where Chidinma was working. Chidinma had been sketching, something she did in her free time. She was designing a dress. It was beautiful. It was inspired by traditional Igbo patterns mixed with modern cuts. The dress had its unique flow. The elegance was completely original. Chidinma hadn't shown it to anyone yet. She was still thinking about it, imagining how it would look when it was sewn. Auntie Toyin saw the sketch and her eyes changed. She said, "Chidinma, this is beautiful. Can I see it?" Chidinma happily showed her the sketch. She explained her ideas. She explained the inspiration, the vision, everything. Auntie Toyin listened carefully. She said, "This is wonderful. This could be a bestseller." Chidinma felt proud. She felt like finally her talent was being recognized. She thought Auntie Toyin was going to help her create this dress, but that wasn't what happened. 2 weeks later, Chidinma saw the dress. It was in Auntie Toyin's boutique window on Victoria Island. It was her design, exactly her design, but with Auntie Toyin's name on the label. The dress was perfect. Every stitch was exactly as Chidinma had imagined it. It was beautiful, and it was being sold under Auntie Toyin's name. Chidinma felt something break inside her. She went to Auntie Toyin and asked, "Ma, why is my design in the shop with your name on it?" Auntie Toyin looked at her coldly. She said, "Your design? My dear, you created that design while you were my apprentice. You used my material, my time, my studio. The design belongs to me. Everything you create here belongs to me. That was the agreement." "But you never said that," Chidinma said quietly. "It's understood. That is how apprenticeship works." And that was the end of the conversation. But it wasn't the end of the problem. It was just the beginning. After that first design, Chidinma's creations started disappearing. She would sketch something, and days later, she would see it in Auntie Toyin's shop. She would create a new pattern, and it would disappear and appear under Auntie Toyin's name. Every single design Chidinma made was being stolen. Every single one. Auntie Toyin was becoming more and more famous because of Chidinma's work. People were calling her a genius. People were writing about her in fashion magazines, but the genius wasn't Auntie Toyin, the genius was Chidinma. Chidinma tried to say something. She tried to tell Auntie Toyin that this wasn't right, but Auntie Toyin would just laugh. She would say, "You think you're the only one with ideas? You think you're special? There are thousands of girls like you, Chidinma. The only thing that makes you valuable is that you work for me. Without me, you are nothing. Remember that." And Chidinma believed her. Chidinma thought maybe she was wrong. Maybe she didn't understand how the fashion world worked. But in her heart, she knew that something was deeply wrong. Then one day, Auntie Toyin came to Chidinma with an angry face. She said, "You know what? I don't think this is working out anymore. You're too slow. Your work is inconsistent. I think you should leave." Chidinma's world collapsed. She said, "But ma, please, I need this job. I have nowhere else to go." Auntie Toyin didn't care. She said, "That is not my problem. You have an hour to pack your things and get out." And that was it. Just like that, Chidinma was fired. She was thrown out with nothing but a small bag of her belongings. Chidinma walked the streets of Abuja that night with tears streaming down her face. She had no job, no money, and she had no one. And the worst part was that her designs, the designs she had created with her own hands, with her own heart, were being worn by people all over the city. And everyone thought they were Auntie Toyin's designs. Everyone thought Auntie Toyin was the genius. And nobody knew that Chidinma existed. Nobody knew she was the one who created them. Chidinma felt erased. She felt like she had become completely erased from her own life. For 3 months, Chidinma had nothing. She slept in different places. Sometimes she stayed with people she knew from the neighborhood. Sometimes she slept in the market. She was broken. She had lost her dream and she didn't know how to get it back. She was angry, very angry at Auntie Toyin, angry at herself for trusting and angry at the world for being so unfair. Then she met Amara. Amara was selling food by the roadside. She had a small stand where she sold pepper soup and rice. Chidinma came by one evening, hungry and cold, and Amara saw her. Amara recognized that look, the look of someone who had lost everything. Amara gave Chidinma food without asking for money. She said, "Sit down, eat, and you can tell me your story." Chidinma told her. She told Amara everything. She told her about the designs, about Auntie Toyin, about how she was fired, and how nobody knew she existed. Chidinma cried as she told the story. Amara listened. When Chidinma finished, Amara said something Chidinma would never forget. "The fact that Auntie Toyin had to steal your designs means your designs are better than hers. She wouldn't steal something that wasn't valuable. Your talent is so powerful that she was afraid of you. That's why she tried to bury you. But you can't bury talent. It always comes back." Chidinma looked at Amara and said, "But how? How does it come back? Everyone thinks those designs are hers. What can I do?" "Keep creating," Amara said. "You don't stop. You just find a way to show the world that the talent is yours." Amara let Chidinma stay with her. Amara gave her a place to sleep and food. Amara became the friend that Chidinma needed when she had nothing. But there was something else that happened during those months. There was a young man named Damilare. Damilare was a fashion journalist. He wrote 4 major magazines and a website. He covered the fashion industry in Abuja. One day, Damilare was at a fashion show where Auntie Toyin was showcasing her new collection. The collection was stunning. The designs were incredible, but something about them bothered Damilare. Damilare had been following the fashion in Abuja for years, and he had never seen Auntie Toyin designs like this before. These designs were different. They were more original, sophisticated. Something just didn't add up. He started investigating. He started looking into Auntie Toyin's background. He started asking questions. He talked to people who had worked with her, and slowly a pattern emerged. Every time Auntie Toyin's designs became more amazing, it was right after she had hired a new apprentice. And every time the apprentice left, her designs stayed amazing, but a different apprentice would arrive. Damilare became suspicious. He started researching more, and then he heard about Chidinma. Someone mentioned her name to him. Someone said there was a girl who worked for Auntie Toyin and she was incredibly talented, but then she was fired. Damilare found Chidinma. He went to Amara's food stand and asked around. Eventually, someone pointed him to where Chidinma was. He introduced himself and said, "I'm a fashion journalist. I think there's a story here that needs to be told." Chidinma was afraid at first. She didn't want to talk about Auntie Toyin. She was still hot. But Damilare was kind. He said to her, "I'm not trying to hurt you. I just want the truth to come out. People deserve to know who the real talent is." Chidinma showed Damilare her sketchbooks. She showed him the sketches she had created for Auntie Toyin. Because Chidinma still had copies, she had kept records of everything she designed. When Damilare saw those sketches, his eyes widened. "Chidinma, these are incredible. These are exactly the same as the designs in Auntie Toyin's shops. Exactly the same." And then Damilare said something that made Chidinma feel alive again. He said, "Let me help you. Let me write about this. Let me tell the whole world the truth." Damilare spent weeks investigating. He spoke to other apprentices who had worked for Auntie Toyin. They all had the same story. They all had designs that were stolen. They all had been fired when they were no longer useful. Damilare gathered all this information. He collected all the evidence and documented everything. And then he published the article. The article was titled, "The Hidden Genius Behind Abuja's Most Famous Designer." The article told the entire story. It exposed Auntie Toyin. It showed how she had been stealing designs from her apprentices. It showed Chidinma's original sketches compared to the finished designs. It showed how Chidinma was the real talent behind all those beautiful clothes. The article went viral. It spread across social media. Fashion lovers, designers, and industry professionals. Everyone started talking about it. Everyone was shocked and angry, and everyone suddenly knew about Chidinma. Auntie Toyin's world fell apart. Fashion magazines that had been praising her started writing negative articles. Boutiques started refusing to carry her clothes. Customers started asking questions. The fashion community started boycotting her. Everything that Auntie Toyin had built was crumbling. She tried to defend herself. She said that the designs were her ideas, that she just hired Chidinma to execute them. She said that that was how apprenticeships worked. But nobody believed her anymore. The evidence was too clear. The sketches were too identical. The pattern of hiring and firing apprentices was too obvious. Auntie Toyin's reputation was destroyed overnight. She went from being celebrated to being called a thief and a fraud. She lost her business, her boutique closed, and she disappeared from the fashion industry. But the best part for Chidinma was what happened next. After Damilare's article came out, designers started contacting Chidinma. Fashion houses wanted to work with her. Boutiques wanted to sell her designs. Magazines wanted to feature her. Suddenly, everyone wanted Chidinma. The same girl who had been erased just months before was now being celebrated as a genius. Chidinma decided to start her own fashion line. She called it Mma Designs, and it was successful from day one. The styles were fresh, they were original, they were what people had been wanting all along. Customers loved her designs, critics praised her vision. She won awards, she became famous. But more than the fame, more than the success, Chidinma felt something again. She felt whole again. Her work was being recognized as her own. Her talent was being celebrated. She wasn't invisible anymore. She mattered. And Damilare, he stayed by her side through everything. While Chidinma was building her brand, Damilare was there. He wasn't just her friend anymore. Chidinma had fallen in love with him and he had fallen in love with her. 1 year after the article was published, Damilare asked Chidinma to marry him. He took her to the Central Business District, to the same street where Auntie Toyin's boutique used to be. He got on one knee and said, "Chidinma, you are the most talented, strongest and most beautiful woman I know. You never gave up even when everything was taken from you. Will you marry me?" Chidinma said yes. 2 years later, Chidinma and Damilare were married. Chidinma's fashion line had expanded into 3 different boutiques across Lagos and Abuja. She was making good money, she was respected, she was happy. But Chidinma never forgot where she came from. She never forgot the pain of having her work stolen. She never forgot what it felt like to be voiceless. So she decided to use her success for something bigger. She opened the Chidinma Academy of Fashion Design. The academy was a free school for young girls who were poor, who had talent but had no way to develop it. Girls that were in the same position she was once in. Chidinma hired experienced designers to teach. She provided all the materials. She taught not just fashion but also business, law, and how to protect your intellectual property. She made sure that every girl who came through that academy would know how to recognize when someone was taking advantage of them. She made sure they knew their rights. In the first year, 50 girls graduated from the academy. In the second year, 100 girls. By the 5th year, hundreds of young girls had gone through the academy, learned fashion design and started their own successful businesses. Many of them came back to thank Chidinma. They would say, "Ma, I'm opening my own boutique now." Or, "Ma, I'm selling my designs online." Or, "Ma, a big fashion house had offered me a job and I'm taking it." And Chidinma would be so proud. She would think about how her pain had become someone else's opportunity. Chidinma also made sure that Auntie Toyin faced legal consequences. She filed a lawsuit against her for theft of intellectual property. The case took years, but eventually, Auntie Toyin was ordered to pay Chidinma compensation. The money wasn't the important part for Chidinma. The important part was that the law recognized that Auntie Toyin had done wrong. Amara, her best friend, became the manager of one of Chidinma's boutiques. Amara went from selling food on the roadside to being a successful business manager. Amara and Chidinma remained sisters for life. And Damilare continued to be her support. He wrote more articles about fashion industry exploitation. He helped protect other young designers. Together, they became advocates for fairness in the fashion industry. 2 years later, when Chidinma was giving a speech at a fashion conference, she said something that made people cry. She said, "I lost my designs to someone I trusted. I lost my voice for a time, but I learned that your talent is bigger than any person who tries to steal it. Your gift is yours alone. And if you keep creating, if you keep believing, keep pushing forward, eventually the world will see your true worth. The pain you suffer because of theft, because of injustice, that pain can become the fuel for your purpose. Don't let anyone keep your light hidden." A young girl in the audience was crying. After the speech, the girl came to Chidinma and said, "Ma, I'm also designing clothes in secret. I'm afraid to show my designs to anyone because I'm afraid they'll steal them. What should I do?" Chidinma took the girl's hand and said, "Don't be afraid. Be smart. Learn your rights. Document your designs, every one of them. Find people that you can trust. But most importantly, believe in yourself. Your designs are yours, and nobody can take that away from you if you don't let them." And that girl went on to become a successful designer herself. The moral lesson of this story teaches us something important about theft and betrayal. When someone steals your ideas, when someone takes credit for your work, it hurts deeply. It feels like they are stealing a part of your soul. But here's what I want you to understand. Your talent is bigger than any person who tries to exploit it. Your creativity cannot be permanently buried, and your gift will find a way to shine. Learn to protect your work. Document everything. Learn your rights. Keep records. Don't just trust people because they seem successful or kind. Always verify and ask questions. Be smart about who you give your work to. But also remember this. Even if someone steals from you, that doesn't define your worth. Your work being stolen proves that you have something valuable. A thief wouldn't steal something worthless, so take back your power. Tell your truth and use your pain to create your purpose. Auntie Toyin tried to bury Chidema's talent, but she couldn't. No one can bury real talent forever. It always comes back up, stronger and even more beautiful than before.